a microphony.
And a phony at the mic.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The Doctor of Discernment is now online.
You know, much like my show, in that it's a local reaction to things that are happening on a federal level.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense. No prescription required.
Wow, do I have a boatload of stuff for you, from the crazy to the absurd. Let's start getting into it because, I mean, it is bizarro world out there. And I say, if it's obvious to me, it should be obvious to everybody. Oh, wow. Who could have seen this coming?
This is the Fourth Hour with Greg Belfrage.
Hold on to your butts.
Podcasting from my basement bunker beneath Kello Radio. Welcome to the Fourth Hour of the Greg Belfrage Show. Let's make sure I get that. There we go. Thanks for being here. Don Lemon been arrested for the Minnesota church invasion. He was arrested early today. He was taken into custody by federal agents. He was in Los Angeles covering the Grammy Awards. That's from Lemon's attorney, Abby Lowell. And that was confirmed by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. So he is one of 4 people arrested by federal agents early today in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul. Lemon spent the night in jail. Is expected to make a first appearance in court sometime Friday, according to Brian Stelter of CNN. So his attorney says that he was there as a journalist, constitutionally protected work. Yeah, that's what he was doing. So he said Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. He should have his day in court. Absolutely right. So it's not immediately clear what charges he's facing, according to the New York Post. He's been accused of violating the Enforcement Act of 1871. It bans interference with certain civil rights, such as voting, serving on a jury, or practice of religion. It's also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act. Was originally created to prevent, Ku Klux Klan and their activities. So Harmy Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General, said the DOJ is also considering charging Lemon under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. That was a 1994 federal law that also covered interference with religious worship. Primarily, that one was outside of clinics then. If you're out there praying, so on, that you couldn't interfere with people who would be praying outside of a clinic. So Lemon may face additional charges under that act as well. So we'll see how that shapes up. But Don Lemon, I wasn't sure. The judge now, I think it's really important that you understand that a judge had said in regard to Don Lemon that no, we're not going to allow you to just file charges. However, if you want to take it to a grand jury, and you go through the grand jury process, and that's what DOJ did. So it just took a little bit more time. So they went to the grand jury, got the indictment against Lemon, and now he is facing a number of charges. That is a big story today. And that's fairly new. That wasn't out there as I was on the air this morning. In fact, I think in the last hour of the program, I was starting to hear Fox News Radio report on it. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you. That was not out there earlier this morning as I was prepping the show. So that's fairly new. But then I'm going to come back to that. I got some other news I want to share. Rich Lowry's got a very interesting piece at the New York Post about Alex Preddy. He wasn't killed while protesting. He puts it in quotation marks. This is a common description of what he was doing on a Minneapolis street Saturday. If Preddy had been a mere protester, he'd very likely be alive today. And, we've been saying the same thing for days. If he had just been a protester, no, now we're seeing videos of this earlier struggle he had with federal agents, kicking their vehicle, damaging the vehicle, spitting at officers, cursing at officers, flipping them off. We're seeing the videos of that. So this guy is not a protester. And so Rich Lowry says, a protester is typically understood as someone who is making a point, often as part of a, gathering of other like-minded people, and usually, but not always, in opposition to something. That's what a protester is. And what we saw from Alex Preddy was not a protest. It was lawlessness. And I saw there was a comment by Ari Fleischer. You remember Ari Fleischer? He's a former White House press secretary. Ari Fleischer said on X, he was talking, as we talk about sanctuary cities and refusal to comply with federal law. And that's what we've seen this week. We have people who are refusing to comply with federal law. So Ari Fleischer says if cities and states can declare themselves sanctuaries and refuse to comply with federal law, why can't individuals do the same to cities and states? Why can't individuals in Minnesota declare themselves sanctuary citizens and refuse to pay taxes or obey laws they disagree with, refuse to pay for the military or fill out a tax form? What would Governor Walz and Mayor Frey do if citizens did to them as they're doing to the federal government? They'd go after those individuals just like the federal government is and should go after Minnesota leaders until they follow the law. Fleischer says there's no such thing as a sanctuary from the law. Everyone needs to obey the law or work within the system to change the law. Sanctuaries are slippery slopes. He's absolutely right. And you don't see that. If that is something you feel strongly about, then you work to change the law. You don't just disregard the law because you've made a determination that you don't feel that you have to follow the law. You're above the law. It doesn't apply to you for whatever reason. I find it especially infuriating when public officials do that, when they absolutely ignore the law. It's quite frustrating. I think there's something that needs to be put into context regarding Kristi Noem. The stories that I was seeing this morning about the president's cabinet meeting. President held the first cabinet meeting of the year yesterday, and not everyone spoke. And I had seen a headline at the Washington Examiner. I don't have the piece in front of me, that the, president didn't allow Kristi Noem to speak. I want to put that in context for you because that's not what happened. That is not what happened. I mentioned on the air this morning, not only did Kristi Noem not speak during the cabinet meeting, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, didn't speak during the cabinet meeting. So One American News Network has a story on this, and they presented it in an entirely different light, frankly, in a far more accurate light. President Trump held his first cabinet meeting of the new year on Wednesday, saying he wanted to keep it from being boring, unlike meetings in past years. And the president said to everyone there, he said, look, it got pretty boring. Everybody laughed. And he explained last year he was only caught closing his eyes because I wanted to get the hell out of there. That's total Trump. And this, I mentioned this briefly on the air this morning. These meetings are going on 2.5 to 3.5 hours that they're ongoing. So, of course, the president, 3.5, can you imagine sitting in a 3.5 hour meeting? I think a lot of us, we'd want to get the hell out of there. So the president said, we're not going to go through the whole table because the last time we had a press conference, it lasted for 3 hours. And some people said he closed his eyes and he said, I don't sleep much. And so this is why he didn't call on Pam Bondi. He didn't call on Christine Ohm. He didn't call. It was a much abbreviated cabinet meeting that the president held. But again, you look at the way the media spins that and the way that they present it to you is, well, Christine Ohm wasn't allowed to speak at the meeting. That's just the president's trying to shorten those meetings. He feels like they're too long. And that totally makes sense. I think Trump is just one of those guys. He is always going. I look at the number of things that he does and is able to accomplish and his energy. And I'm like, man, because I'm quite a bit younger than President. Doesn't look like it. I'm younger. I'm only 62. And I look at him and his, energy, and I'm like, wow, man, I envy him that at that age he's still going strong, doing well, and he's up and at 'em and wanting to tackle stuff. But yeah, 3.5 hour meetings. Can we agree those are too long? I'm going to say that's too long. That's just me. Also, the FBI announced this morning that they have arrested about 50 members of a violent Latin Kings street gang. So this is called Operation Broken Crown. Involved more than a dozen FBI field officers working with federal, state, local, and tribal partners. They want to curb the Latin Kings' nationwide criminal operations. Since this operation began in October, more than a dozen firearms have been seized, along with nearly $200,000 in illicit funds, more than 10 kilograms of cocaine, fentanyl, other narcotics. So now approximately 50 people. I think it's a little under that. And Kash Patel saying the FBI will continue working 24/7 to crush violent crime and eliminate networks facilitating harm on the American people. I am just, as I see this, I've told you before, I'm very much in favor of law and order. I'm very supportive of those in law enforcement, whether it's the local level, the county level, state level, federal level. I'm very supportive. And I think right now as you see what's going on, for instance, it's law enforcement that is holding some of these Democrat-run cities and states. It's law enforcement who is, holding on by their fingernails, trying to hold things together. And I pray for them daily. It's just what an incredible job that the men and women of law enforcement do for this country. I just think it's absolutely amazing. And I'll continue to always be supportive of law enforcement. And I'll also be unafraid if they make mistakes, to point that out. Because there were questions following the death of Alex Preddy. Okay, you had 2 people that were killed. Let's wait and see. But did law enforcement here make a mistake? And I think the more that we learn about Alex Preddy and his involvement and, this altercation that he had with law enforcement officials some 11 days before he wound up dead, it just kind of underscores that he was up to no good. He was absolutely up to no good. That is not peaceful protesting. That is not letting your voice be heard. That is, that is an absolute assault on law enforcement that we see these people involved with. And I really don't have an appetite for it. It's just, you can't allow those things to continue. There's a cartoon that I want to share that just absolutely cracked me up. This I found this funny. Democrats saying law enforcement officials shouldn't wear masks. And then Batman and Robin, oh, really? Oh, I love it. As a Batman fan, I'm like, oh yeah, that's absolutely right. That is absolutely spot on. So I wanted to share that with you before we wrap up for the week. If you're not a subscriber of mine on YouTube, I hope you'll consider becoming one. If you haven't already done so, a big thank you to those of you who have. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Makes an absolute difference. I can see it, when folks are hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, getting that out to more and more folks. I see growth. My numbers on YouTube keep growing, and it's because of you. And that's the only thing I ask of you. I don't, I'm not asking you to go out and do this and please, okay, go out. We're going to be here on, the only thing I ask of you is just please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. You have made it to the end of the video, so you are part of my gallery of champions. Special salute for the Bunker Brigade, the folks on YouTube who are commenting already. I can see their comments. Thanks so much. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. I'll see you again on Monday. Until then, I'm underground and go.